Today we're going to be doing quite a fun project to convert my existing desk into a motorised sit-stand desk. So this is my existing desk. I've had this for many years now, probably about 7 years at this point, and it's an IKEA GALANT. And they don't sell them anymore, but I do absolutely love this desk. So I've got the actual desktop itself, and then above that, because I've seen quite a lot of people ask about it, I've got literally an IKEA shelf and then some IKEA cupboard legs that stands on top of the desk, and that just gives me a bit more space. And I absolutely love the desk. But now I've started working from home, I've thought about getting a sit-stand desk because it's something I've been interested in, but I've never been able to justify it because normally when I'm not working from home, I rarely use my desk, to be honest. So I've never really had the justification to get it. But now I'm working from home every day, I thought, well, now's the time to get a sit-stand desk. But I didn't really want to replace the whole thing. I like this desk, so I didn't want to replace it. And also it felt quite wasteful, either having to buy a new one and then throw this one out, or I'd have the hassle of trying to sell or give it away. And I just couldn't be bothered dealing with that. But what I found is you can actually buy standing desk frames and mount them onto an existing desk. So that's what we're going to do here. We're going to take off the whole, we'll take the whole desk totally apart, take off the whole under existing frame, which is the IKEA GALANT frame, and fit a brand new height adjusting motorised frame. So we can fit that on it and convert this desk. This sort of thing isn't just for people like me who want to save money by using an existing desk. This could also be if you want a custom sort of standing desk just to match your personal style. Most standing desks are obviously designed for offices, they're very boring, sort of white or wood effect tops and stuff like that. Whereas if you're using this in a home or some sort of more stylish environment, you might want to use real wood, you might want to use some sort of other material, you might want to just have material that matches the rest of your decor that you can't get from a standing desk manufacturer. So that's another really good option, is you can just buy a frame, get your desktop up from wherever you want to get it from, and then make it into a standing desk. So for this project, we're going to be using this standing desk frame from FlexiSpot. And I'd like to say a massive thank you to FlexiSpot for sending me this for this video. As I always like to do full disclosure if anyone's sent me anything for a review. FlexiSpot have sent me this free of charge to take a look at and try out. However, they haven't told me anything to say, and they're not going to be seeing this video before it goes live, so I'll be giving my honest opinion of it. This is their E5 model, which is one of their higher end ones. It retails for about £360, which is expensive, but is actually a lot cheaper than buying most standing desks, especially for a motorised sit-stand one. And yeah, this is their higher end model. So this one has two motors. Some of the cheaper ones that they do have one motor, so you can save money by doing that. But with two motors, it lets it lift more weight. So this can lift up to 125 kilograms, which isn't hugely important for me because I've only got some monitors and a laptop on the desk. But if you had a big desktop PC, you might want to consider the weight. It's also a 3-stage model. They do 3-stage and 2-stage ones. The number of stages is essentially the number of parts of the sort of telescopic legs. The 3-stage one has three of those stages, which means it has a wider range of height, so it can go down lower and go up higher. However, you can save money and go for a 2-stage model, but that can't go as high and can't go as low. So it really just depends on what your needs are, as in like how much weight you need and how high you need it to go and how low you need it to go. The other difference between the models is the controls. At the most basic level, they've just got up and down buttons. So you hold the button down and it moves up, and then you let go when it's in position. And there's a down button as well. This one's one of their middle of the range models, where what it does is it has programmable positions. So you can just go up and down normally manually, or you can have presets, I think up to 3 presets. So you can set it to different heights and hit one button to trigger that height. Then at their top end, they've got a couple of models that have things like collision avoidance. So that's when if the desk detects it's hitting something, it will stop. That can be useful if you've either got kids or pets running around, or you've maybe got like a filing cabinet or desktop PC under the desk that you want it to stop before it hits. This doesn't have that, but it still does have the 3 presets. So yeah, there's a wide range of these different frames, and you can either buy these as frames like I've got here, or you can buy them as complete desks. They do both. You can buy a desk, or you can just buy the frame. So here's the box, and as we can see, this is the E5S-UK. As I mentioned earlier, E5 is the model, so that's the dual motor 3-stage base. S is the colour. This is a silver one, which is more sort of grey colour. They also do black and white, but grey is what I've got already and it matches my desk, so that's silver. And then UK is just off the UK model, so I presume the only difference really is just what power plug it comes with. So now let's get inside. So now let's get the frame unpacked and see what it comes with. Let's open the box here. What I'll be doing in this video is I'll be doing a full sort of build video. So I'll put all the chapters in the description, and they'll probably show up in that new YouTube chapter thing, just to let you sort of skip through it, because I'll show the actual sort of build process as well as detail just the you know, I'll give a final review at the end. So feel free to skip the bit you want. Yeah, open the box there. See what we get. A lot of polystyrene to get rid of. So, what do we want to peel out first? So, let's see. Boring bit first, just an IEC lead. Fairly long actually, yeah, comes with an IEC lead to power it. Big bag of screws, Allen keys, yeah, all that sort of stuff. Polystyrene, polystyrene. These are obviously the feet that sit on the floor. Another foot there. A couple of bits these will mount to the underside of the desk. And what's quite good with these actually is you can see the sheer number of holes. So these are the parts that will go front to back on the desk and screw on. And there's a lot of holes here. That's quite good because if you're retrofitting this onto an existing desk, it probably won't line up with the existing sort of fixings that are already on the desk. So you'll probably be screwing straight into the wood, which obviously isn't as strong. So having a lot of holes here will allow you to put a lot of screws in to securely fix it. Another one of those. There's on the telescopic feet, which is really heavy. Yep, so most of the weight is clearly in that because that's what's got the motors in it, and then there's a cable hanging off that will go to like a controller probably. Another one of those on the other side. Just leave that one in, there's no point taking it out. That's obviously the sort of power supply, IC in. Those will go off to the motors, and that RJ45 will go to the controller, I presume. And then finally in here, we've got the controller, which sits on the front of the desk. So you've got your up and down presets and a few other buttons we'll take a look at later. And that's got the RJ45 connector on it. And then all we've got left is just the other leg there. And then this, which is obviously the undercarriage that goes onto the underside of the desk. So that's the other parts that'll mount to the other underside of the desk. And it appears to have some sort of like cable management, so you can probably mount cables and power adapter and all that sort of stuff in here, which will be neat. So yeah, that's all the parts. Definitely wasn't particularly easy to unbox because it's so big, but what I'll do is I'll go off camera, get it all unpacked, get the packaging out of the way, and then we'll come back and dismantle the desk. So now's the part I've been looking forward to the least, where I have to dismantle my entire desk, get all the stuff on it stored away safely, and then we can turn the desk upside down and take it apart and convert it. Okay, so that's the desk now dismantled, so it's time to flip it over and take it apart. Okay, so I've now got the desk upside down. As you can see, we've got this frame. So we've got the two legs here, and they fix onto this frame. And then that's held in with, I think, 6 screws or something. So all I need to do is take those 6 screws out, get rid of this frame. And then I've also got this cable basket on the back that I'll be keeping. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to move it into the desk slightly. When I first put this on, I put it right to the back. But now I use monitor arms and stands for the speakers. Those clamp onto the desk and they do kind of foul this. And I've just never got around to fixing it. So at the same time, I'm going to take this off, move this basket in a little bit, and then we can try and mount the FlexiSpot frame. Okay, so that's the old frame now removed, so I can dismantle that and get rid of it. And then I've also moved the cable basket just in slightly from the side, just so those monitor clamps won't get in the way. So now we'll go and get the new frame and we'll start building it. Okay, so now we need to build a new desk. Obviously this won't really be useful for everyone, so if you want to just see the review, there's obviously timestamps and chapters in the search bar you can sort of skip through. So if you want to skip past this, that's fine. But we may as well build it on video just to show how you do it. And the instructions look quite good. Like for example, it labels all the screws with letters and does it again on all the assembly diagrams. And then all the screws are actually provided in a packet. They're all marked with the letters. So that'll be really good. it's definitely nice getting that rather than having the sort of, you know, pictures of the screws. You've got to try and work out which side is which. So the first thing we're meant to do is put the feet onto the legs. So I'll do one on camera and I'll do the other one off camera. So stand up there, and then you've got the legs there, which interestingly the mounting point's actually off centre. But looking at the picture, the longer part's meant to go towards the front of the desk and the shorter part towards the back, which I suppose actually makes sense because on a desk usually you'll have the weight towards the back where your monitors are, and then you want the sort of legs towards the back as well because then you're not going to kick them. So yeah, that's there. Doesn't really matter which way we do it here because I will need to be careful actually because these will need to go on one of these will be for one side, one will be for the other side, so I'll need to make sure I definitely align these like the correct way around and don't end up with them like both off centre. I also have to think about what I'm doing there. But yeah, let's mount this one here. First one isn't as important because, you know, the other one, I'll just do the opposite for the other one. Yeah, so that's 4 screws there. Comes with Allen keys as well to fix them on. I might end up using my drill actually to do it properly. That's quite cool. One of the Allen keys has a screwdriver bit on the end as well. Not that you'll probably need that, you'd be better off with a proper screwdriver, but you know, in a pinch, if you're caught without a screwdriver, it is nice to get that. Yep, just put that on there. 4 screws in. And then fix this on. I think I'll get my drill out with a hex bit and actually just tighten these up with that just to get them properly tight. Because the old desk I definitely just put together with Allen keys, and after a few years it got a little bit wobbly, so probably torque these up. Yeah, just need to put these screws in here, and then do the same to the other one. That'll then give us the 2 feet, and then we just need to attach them to the frame, and then we can continue building it. So that's 2 legs now built off camera. I've got the other one here. That was totally easy to do. You just have to think about the way the sort of longer part's going to fit, just to make sure when you put both legs up, this bit will face towards the front. And then this sort of bit on the back with the motor sort of should hang like inwards and on the desk like that. It just requires a bit of sort of thought, it's not too hard. Now we need to sort the frame. So this is the frame here that you'll see will be far too short for this desk. But what's really smart, because this is also designed for retrofitting and using on different desktops, this is actually adjustable. So there's 6 screws on here you can loosen off the Allen key, and it slides out telescopically. So you can slide it out like that. And actually cool, it's even capped as well, which is nice. So it can fit a desk even wider than this. I think I'll need to check this. The specs say how wide a desk it'll fit. This desk's 160 wide, so it's pretty good. So all you need to do is sort of shorten that off to be just under the width of the desk. The actual like legs and stuff fit under it, but there's a slight bit of metal that'll fit up the side here. So I'm just going to leave it like maybe 5mm short at each side. Do that there, check the other side. Yep, the other side looks about right. So that's like the right width. And then all I'm going to do is just try and centre these middle parts roughly just so the screws are in the centre, just because it'll bug me if I don't. Just eyeball it. That looks about right. Yep. So that's now like that. So all we need to do is tighten up these 8 screws. And that'll just secure this in place. Just do these 4 on this side, these 4 on this side, and the frame will now be fixed to the correct width. Okay, so the frame's now sorted. Now time to put the legs on. So what we'll do is we'll flip this over, and then the leg has these sticky up bits on it here, and then the frame has these holes. So those posts need to fit into these holes here, and then you screw through. The only quirky thing is that these parts here, which is like the bits that sit on the side that the desktop screws to, those also need to fit on here and then be screwed through. So what I'll do to make it easier is I'll put the legs on using the inner 2 screws on both sides to have the whole thing standing up, and then I'll come back and fit those other pieces over here next. It's a bit trickier to do like as one person. But there we go, so you just need to do that there, slide that over, and get it all lined up, and there we go. So that's it there. So that's now sort of lined up. So what I'll do is I'll put the 2 inner screws in and leave the other 2 screws out for now. And then I'll come back, so put that screw in there. I haven't left the Allen key too far away, there we go. And yeah, the instruction for this definitely seemed really, really good. I've not had any problems so far. Yeah, I'll put that one in there too. Get that really tight. And that's good. So that's now sort of, it's obviously not fully screwed on, still need to do those other 2, but that's now sort of holding its own weight. So what I'll now do is I'll go and do the other side exactly the same, and then we can put the other bits on. Okay, so that's now both legs on and it's now standing flat. and I've got the inner 2 screws on each side, and that is totally solid, which is really good. So what we now need to do is go over here, and we need to mount the 2 other parts that hold the desk on. So we've got 2 of them here, and now you'll notice that like the feet, they're off centre, so the 2 screws are slightly off centre. So we need to make sure we use this. So this is actually for the other side, and this one is for this side, because you can see you want this part, this nice finished piece, to sit towards the outside. So we want it to almost match the feet. So we want this one on there. You wouldn't want it the other way around because it would be off centre. So we now need to do that. So 2 more of those screws, stick that there, and then they just go through the top. That, one in there, one in there, tighten these up. Cool. And then same on the other side. Okay, so that's the whole frame now built. So all I now need to do is flip this whole frame upside down, get it onto the desk, and then screw it in. So it's really heavy. Obviously, you don't really think how heavy it is until you realise how many motors there are in there. So it's definitely very heavy, but if you just carefully flip it over, it is very strong, so I'm not worried about it. I'm trying to think of the best way this will need to go. I need to actually totally flip it this way, which is probably going to hit the ceiling. Okay, so that's now flipping. That is really heavy and awkward. But I'm now going to carefully lay this down onto the desk there. And that's now the correct way around. In hindsight, I should have tried to build it the other way around, because then I wouldn't have had to flip it like that. But now, that's like that there. So what I'm now going to do is get this all measured up so I can get it sort of so it's just so the legs are almost centred on the desk. Might need to sit a little bit further forward just so it doesn't get in the way of my cable tray. But what we need to do is line all that up, get it all measured out and lined up, and then put all those screws in. Okay, so now ready to screw the desktop on. So I've lined this all up, it's all perfectly centred, so that's ready to go. So there's just all these screws, and they're just self-tapping screws. And that's why there's so many of them, because on the old desk it had these little plastic, almost rod plug type things in the holes, and that meant it was really secure. Because this is retrofitting, you don't have that luxury. So instead it has just a lot of self-tapping screws, and if I put enough of them in, I'll just put all of them in. That should be good. It's also worth just checking the length of these screws against your desktop. They're fine for me, but you just want to make absolutely sure that you're not going to have this poke through the other side of the desk. So I'd almost even recommend trying one and just double check, because if these poke through your desk, you're going to have a bit of a problem. So make sure you measure first and just definitely do that in case you need to get new screws. So that should be easy enough to do, just put all these screws in. And then for these parts in the middle, because it's telescopic, there's a gap in here. So it comes with these little plastic washer type spacer things, and then they slot under there and then space it out. It comes with 6 because there's 6 holes here, but if you had this contracted a bit more, you wouldn't have all the holes available, so you just use less of them. The only thing I would note with these is it's probably hard to make out, but they're kind of like a U shape. So that U is designed to hug this piece. So you'd want to slide these under first before you screw the rest down, because you kind of need to lift up a tiny little bit to get each spacer slid under. So you'd want to slide those under first before you start screwing the rest down, or you won't be able to get them in. So yeah, time to screw all those screws in. Okay, so now I've screwed the frame onto the desk. So I've put a lot of screws in here, I've used them all up, and it's on really securely. So now we need to sort the wiring. Now the only mistake I've made there is I used all the screws to mount the desk, which is good because it's really secure. But the problem is I've done that and then not left any to mount the control box or the control panel. Ultimately I could have just taken a couple out and just moved them, but I found a few screws lying around, so I'll just reuse these. But yeah, that's worth bearing in mind when you're putting the screws in. Keep probably about 4 aside, so you've got 2 to mount this and then 2 to mount this. Otherwise you'll have the problem I have. But yeah, we need to mount all this. So what I'll do is I want the control panel on the right hand side, so that'll be on the left because it's upside down. So that'll go there. And then because I want to save wires trailing, I'll mount the control panel or the sort of power supply thing in here like that. And yeah, I'll do that, and then that means that the IEC connector's here, so I can easily get an IEC cable into it. And then once that's done, it has these little cable management plates, so those will sit over on either side. And yeah, that leaves you this gap here to fit a few other cables in. You won't get many in it because it's not got that much space, but maybe if you have like a laptop charger or something, you could tuck it in there. I've also got my separate cable basket I'll be using for most stuff. But yeah, so what I'll do is I'll quickly screw the power supply down using these 2 screws. And then we'll screw the control panel in. So shut that one in there. Obviously you don't have to really screw these in, you could just like sit them inside that cable tray, but I'd rather have them all secured in. Just feels a bit nicer. Screw that in there. There we go, that's fine, that'll do. And then for the control panel, I'm still going to mount it like roughly there's probably fine, not right on the edge, probably just, yeah, there, it doesn't really matter. Obviously it can be moved later easily as well. So a couple of screws in the back here. It's slotted, which is good as well, because this obviously slides back and forward and you might want to get it so it lines up perfectly with the sort of edge of your desk. So I'll just chuck a screw in sort of there. And I can always like slide it and then tighten it afterwards, but that feels about right. Same on the other side. Right. Yep, that seems good there. So that's the control panel mounted. And now we need to wire it up. So the control panel has this sort of, it's quite a long cable attached that goes to an RJ45 connector. So what I'll do is I'll untie all the cables, I'll route them in, and then I'll zip tie them up neatly afterwards. So yeah, that's quite long, but that does mean you could put that on one side, have the control panel at the other side. Gives you a bit of flexibility at least. And then when this is fitted on there, it'll leave a little gap here, so I'll route the cable in here, and then we'll just tie it up out the way once we're done. So that can come off. This motor, first of all, we'll just plug that in, so let's try and sort of tuck the excess cable in here somewhere. I suppose just like that. Plug it in, so it just plugs in with a little sort of connector in there, so like that there. Yeah, that connects in there, and then that cable can just sort of, you know, be tucked away in there neatly, just keep it out of the way. Like that. Now motor 2 is down this side, so that's obviously a much longer cable. So I'll untie that, bring it all the way down, and that's actually quite important to bear in mind that actually, it will reach, but it's actually quite marginal. So yeah, I actually wouldn't have put it that far away, because that's now getting quite tight to get that in. I've put quite a lot of strain to fit it. So it will go in, but in hindsight I should have actually thought about that and mounted it a bit further this way, or fitted it the other way around, because this is going to be a bit tight to get this connector in. Okay, so I've now fixed it. I've moved this as far this way as I can, and it's now sort of marginally tight, but it's okay. I'm happy enough with that. In hindsight, I could have mounted this the other way or moved it to the middle here, but this will depend on your desk. This is a very wide desk, so it means that this is stretched out quite far. On a narrower desk, you wouldn't actually have this issue at all. And also, you know, if it was a really wide desk, you would just mount this the other way. But I wanted to hide all the connectors, so that's fine. And those two motors are now plugged in. So now that's in, the final thing to do is connect the control panel. So I've got that here, and then that just plugs in there very easily with an RJ45 connector. And then there's loads of excess on this. I'll just, again, sort of tidy it up and stuff it down inside here. I can maybe put a cable tie on that later if needed to, but that's neat enough for now. And then finally we can tidy it all up with this plate, which will just go in there, slide that way, and then screw in. So, and this is a really nice touch, because now you can see when that's on there, all the wiring and all that stuff's totally hidden under there. Which looks pretty great. So yep, that's on there. And now there's one for the other side. Now there's nothing I'm really going to put in there for now, but I'll put the plate on. It doesn't give me space to manage cables if I wanted to in the future. Just put that there, and then screw it down. And that's definitely quite neat, because my worry about this when I was seeing all the motors and control panels all connected with cables was that there was going to be a whole snake of cables hanging off the desk. But actually with this sort of system here, that's fine. I mean, this cable hangs in the middle there, this sits there, but they're all kind of neat. And if you're really paranoid about it, you can actually nail little cable clips into the desk to keep these totally out of the way, which I might actually do. I've got some. I think I'll actually do that just to keep those totally tacked in out of the way to prevent them getting caught on things. But yeah, that's pretty neat. Okay, that's all now sorted, and I've put the cable clips in just to make it look a bit neater. Don't really need to, but whatever. So now ready to turn it the right way up. It's also worth noting on the bottom of these feet that these do actually rotate. So if you've got this on like a hard floor and you want to try and balance it out because the floor isn't even, you can actually rotate these to like loosen them off and balance it out a little bit. I'm just gonna leave them in fully tight because it's carpeted and it's quite a even floor in here. So let's do that. And then I'm also gonna put these sort of furniture caster cups on that I had on my old desk. These just help it slide around. They stop it bedding into the carpet because these are designed to like really bed into the carpet. This will stop that happening. It just means if you need to ever slide the desk out the way, it's not as hard. Because especially with the weight of this will really settle down into the carpet and it will be really hard to slide. They don't fit that well, so they might end up cracking, but I've got them anyway, so I may as well put them on and we'll see. They're a bit tight. I'll fit these on and we'll flip the desk up. Cool. So it's now time to flip it the other way up. Oh no, I've just realised it's the wrong way around again. I'll actually rotate it on the floor like this because it's so heavy. I want to minimise actually lifting it off the ground as much as possible because it's ridiculously heavy when you've now got the whole, because essentially you've got the contents of that massive heavy box attached to this. Then I've also now got the whole desktop as well attached and that cable tray, so it all adds up to be quite heavy. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to flip it around this way and I'm going to sort of pull it forwards. Oh, cable's got around there. Cool. So that's now flipped the other way. So it's now time to hopefully flip it the other way up. I don't know why I'm filming this because it's going to be a disaster, but may as well watch, see what happens. So, I suppose have to sort of manhandle it by the legs really. I'm going to do it evenly. There we go. Yep. That worked. Oh, catching things on the table. There we go. Cool. And then now hopefully from here, we can finally flip it the right way up. Almost grabbed onto that there, be careful, don't pull it up by the actual snap it off. Open, hit the camera up, there we go. Knocking over a jar of screws, totally trash in the place. And there we go, it's now the right way up. So in theory, we can slide this back into the corner. And there we go, one standing desk. So what I'll now do is I'll go off camera, connect power to it, and then we'll come back and power it up for the first time and see if it works. And I'll do all that before I put all my stuff on it because if there's a problem I don't want to take it all apart again once it's all reassembled. So, yep, time to go get the power connected and see if it works. Okay, so that's all now set up, plugged into power, so let's switch power on and see if it works. Turn power on down there. Yep, so the screen's now come on, it's showing like a 62. I'm guessing that's also a height, like 62 centimetres. So let's see if we press the up arrow. There we go. That works. That's pretty quick as well. And it's got quite a nice sort of soft start, I've noticed. So like, if you're going down and you let go, it decelerates nicely. It doesn't just stop and like shake things that are on the desk, which is quite nice. And it also it starts accelerating slowly as well. So it doesn't just suddenly instantly start. So that's like it makes sense it has that. But I wasn't even really thinking about that you want it to slowly start because you don't want to suddenly just jump and go. So let's see how high this goes. And also that screen does time out, which is good because you don't want that glowing because it is quite bright. Well, that's a standing desk if you're like 8 foot tall. Is that even in the field of view? No, it's okay, it's actually gone out of field of view of the camera. Like, I'm 6 foot tall. It's like a leaning desk. So, any fears I had about this not being tall enough, yeah, that is definitely tall enough. So yeah, that's actually really nice. And it's not too loud either, so even in like an office, it's not going to be too disruptive. Like it is audible, but it's more of a sort of nice hum. It's not like a grindy, whining noise or anything like that. So yeah, that's definitely really nice. So what I'll do now is I'll go away, get all my stuff rigged up back on this desk again, and I'll come back and give my full review after I've used it, maybe for a week or so. Okay, so I've now got the desk all set up. So you can see I've got it here, I've got my monitors on the arms, speakers on their stands, and just everything I had before really. But now it's on the new standing desk frame. So down here we can see we've got the controls, and we can simply use it. So we can hold the up arrow up to push it up manually, or we can lower it down manually, or I can use presets to move it between a sitting position I tend to use, or the standing position I tend to use. And as you can see, it does raise pretty quickly, and it's not that loud. Like, if I've got music on, I can't really hear it at all. Now you see that's now raised to standing height, which is perfectly comfortable for me to work at. I've then got a third position preset, which is just a little bit lower than the standing height. And I've got this here so I can use it for DJ gear. Because if I've got sort of decks out or anything, you want it to be lower because you want to be down, leaning down over it, not at it like a typing height. But you don't want it to be as low as the sitting height. So it's actually nice having that third preset for that there. So yeah, definitely very happy with it. So now that you've seen it working, let's take a look at the controls. So this control panel is actually really easy to use. Now, what it does seem to do is it seems to go to sleep, and then when you first press it, it then wakes up, and then you can use the buttons. I would rather it didn't do that, because obviously if you want to just hit a preset, you almost have to press the button to wake it up and then press it again, but it's not a huge gripe. And then what you've got here is you've got the up and down buttons and then 3 memory presets. So the up and down buttons work as you'd expect. Up moves it up, down moves it down, just while you're holding on to it. You've then got the 3 memory presets, so you can press them, and they'll instantly jump to the height you've preset. So if I were to hit 2, that's my standing height, the desk will go up. And you can hit it again at any point to stop it in its position. If we then hit 1 again, that'll go to my sitting height, and that'll move the desk down to the sitting position, which is pretty good. These are also really easy to set. So for example, if I was to want my sitting position a little higher, you just move it up, manually get it to the position you want. You then press the M button for memory, hit 1, or hit the preset that you want, and that's now saved in that position. So now if I was to move down from that and hit 1 again, it'll adjust that new height. So it is really easy to use, which is quite important in something like this, because if you're putting this in an office, you want just employees to be able to easily use it. It's different at home where you can sit and read the manual and figure it out, but in an office you want employees just to be able to go to a desk, use it, and not have to ask someone how to work the desk. Especially if people are moving between offices and different offices have different desks. So it's really good to have something quite intuitive like this. The other feature it has is a timer, which isn't something I necessarily want to use myself, but it is nice to have. That's accessed by this A button on the right hand side here. You press that, and it'll say on, and it'll then give you a number. You then use these arrows here to set a number of minutes. So I can just put 15 minutes there, and then what you'll see is it'll start flashing. That's the number now set, and once it's the number set, you'll see that'll go solid, and then these lights here will blink. So what this means is it'll now count down from 15 minutes, and once it hits 0 minutes, an alarm will sound. And once that alarm sounds, simply pressing any of the buttons will then silence the alarm. The idea with this is you can say you want to sit and stand you want to move between sitting and standing every half an hour. You could set 30 minutes on this alarm here, and then every 30 minutes it'll go off, it'll beep, you press a button to adjust the height between sitting and standing, and that'll silence the alarm. And the alarm will continue to operate, so it'll continuously go for 30-minute windows, or whatever window you set. So it'll go off after 30 minutes, you'll move between sitting and standing, and it'll continue to count down again, and half an hour later, it'll go off again. And as you can see, it shows a live countdown. So that's quite good if you want to really force yourself to get into a routine between sitting and standing. And the alarm will stay on, which means you don't have to really think about it. You don't have to set it every time. You can just leave it there, and every time the period you set elapses, the alarm will go off. Then to turn it off, you simply hold down the A button for a wee while. It does take quite a while to hold it down, then it'll go to off there, and that's the alarm now turned off. This isn't something necessarily I use myself, but it is a nice feature to have if you want it, especially if you're trying to force yourself to use a sit and stand desk and not just sit the whole time. So here we are under the desk taking a look at my cable management. And it's not the neatest, but I've been able to get it to sort of work. Now I've got that existing IKEA cable trail on the back, and I've basically been able to fit everything in there. I do need to tidy it up a little bit because I've run out of sockets on that extension lead on the left. It's like an 8-gang one, so I've had to daisy chain a 4-gang off of that, and it's just a bit of a mess, but I'll tidy that up and get a new one later. And then I've got 3 power bricks at this right hand side, sort of together, but trying to keep them roughly apart so they don't overheat each other. It's not ideal, but I've been able to cram everything in there. And then you've got the actual cable management for the desk itself in front, in these areas here. Now, that's fine for a few cables. You wouldn't really be able to put any sort of extension leads in here or anything. But if you, for example, mounted an extension lead to the underside of the desk, you could actually tuck quite a lot of just excess cables into these. So they're good to hold the workings of the desk, and maybe a couple of cables or maybe a single power brick. I do actually have 1 power brick hidden in here, but they can't hold that much. But they're still nice to have. The only gripe I have about this desk at all, really, is just this bit here. So this is where the desk's been expanded apart to make it wider. And you can see it's a sort of U shape, so there's a bit metal here and a bit metal here. Now this is the only downside I've noticed, is that you end up with this metal edge and this metal edge, which aren't sharp, but obviously, you know, running your skin along that is a bit sharp, is a bit more just pointy than running it along a flat tube of metal. Now the only time I've really noticed this is if I've got the desk at quite a low sitting position and I'm wearing shorts, because what this will do is if I lift my leg up, it'll hit off this, and that's just a little bit more uncomfortable to rub your leg against than if this was like a solid tube of metal. But realistically, it's not the biggest deal. You know, that's only if I have it in a really low position and if I'm wearing shorts, so it's not that common. And what you could do if this really was an issue, is you could fairly cheaply get a bit of like metal or even plastic that's a U shape and just mount it over this. It wouldn't be too hard to resolve that issue. So that's the only thing I found at all. Apart from that, I really can't fault this, and just having all these cables neatly managed under here is not the nicest to look at thing in the world, but it keeps them totally off the ground, which is quite good. The only other thing to bear in mind with a standing desk is that obviously you want most of the cables up attached to the desk, and then just be careful with any that dangle down that you've got enough slack on them and they're not going to catch on things. So in this case here, all I've got is the extension lead going to the wall, a power cable going to my printer, and then a pair of Ethernet cables. So that's not too bad, and they just dangle down there, and there's enough slack that they can move up and down easily. You could probably also get some sort of tube or something to put these in, just to make it look a bit neater, and I might do that, is just get a bit of flexible conduit or something, run it in that, and then just hide it behind the cabinet there, and that then just means that it's just kept a little bit neater. You would, however, just need to be careful, for example, if you had a desktop PC sitting on the floor, that your cables to your monitors and all your accessories on your desk are long enough, because what you don't want to do is, you know, plug it all in, put the desk up for the first time, forgetting that the cables are too tight, and either pull your monitors off the desk or lift your desktop PC up by the cables and break something. So you just need to make sure you've got enough slack on your cables just so that it can raise and lower clearly. Now, as for overall stability, the desk's really good. It doesn't really rock around too much at all. When it's at its lowest height, or a sitting height, there's no movement at all. And even at this sort of reasonable standing height at 109 centimeters, which is the sort of height I use for as a 6-foot person, it doesn't really rock too much at all. You know, if you move it, bump into it, you can lean on it, you can move your hands around and work, and there's no real movement. I was properly bumping into it there. And there's a glass of water here, it wobbles a bit, it's nothing major. And to be honest, most of the motion on this is actually because of the carpet, because the desk's sitting on top of carpet, and the carpet's moving around a little bit. If this was on a hard floor, it would be even better. And yeah, I can even bump into that quite solidly, and it rocks. It wobbles a little bit, it's not too bad at all, it does seem really pretty stable. Especially in terms of side-to-side motion, you can see there's like barely any there. I'm putting quite a lot of force on that to move that side to side. And you can rock it, but there's not much at all. And again, most of that is due to it bedding down into the carpet. The actual frame itself seems really solid. So obviously a lot of that comes down to how well you put it together. You do definitely want to get all the screws in really tightly, and I used a drill to do this to get them in properly tight. If you did them a bit loose and they started working loose over time, it might start wobbling a bit more. But if you've built it well and you've screwed it all together really tightly, there's no problem with it wobbling around too much. It's definitely totally strong. Okay, so that's desk now set up, and I'm really happy with this. It's just so nice just to be able to stand at a desk and work, and then sit down when I don't want to stand. Now, while I said I've not used the timer, what I've found works best when I'm working at a standing desk is really what I'm doing. I find that, at least for me, if I want to think about something or read a lot of documentation, I like to sit down and take my time and sort of just read stuff and think. However, if I'm actually working on something or trying to solve a really complex problem, I actually really like standing. And not even from like a fitness or health perspective, just from the perspective of being able to walk away from the desk and think, and come back and just move around a little bit more while I'm trying to solve a problem. And it actually seems to make me a lot more productive. So I quite often find myself just wanting to stand up. It's not like I have to set a timer and go, oh, I will stand up after half an hour. Quite often I'll just be like, oh, fancy standing now. So yeah, this is really helping me. And productivity-wise, it's brilliant. So yeah, I really like having a standing desk now. And I don't think I could go back. So there you go. That's my review of the FlexiSpot E5 standing desk frame. And I have to say a massive shout out to FlexiSpot for sending this over for me to take a look at. And yes, I love this thing. Just being able to take my existing desk that I already love and convert it to be a sit-stand desk without having to replace the top and all the other bits that I like is just so nice. It's taken my existing desk and just made it a whole lot better. So yeah, thank you very much for watching. And if you're interested in buying this, there's links in the video description.